very good evening to you. Welcome to another Newsmaker Live broadcast right here on DBS Television. My name is Timothy Napoleon. We go up until 10 o'clock this evening, at which time we'll be concluding with the clip that peaked. Clearly, our focus is on the folks over at Cooley Town and what has happened there, and the investigation that is being carried out by the police and also the Ministry of Health. And we also are focusing on what has happened in Cul-de-sac just last evening. The island recorded yet another homicide. But those are issues that we'll be speaking in depth in a subsequent Newsmaker Live broadcast. At this time, my guest is the island's minister in the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Ebaldas Raymond, and it was just recently that he reported to the St. Lucian public that St. Lucia was removed from the blacklist of tax nations as far as the European Union is concerned, and St. Lucia is now on the grey list. What does this mean, among other things? Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
And as we say good evening to you once again, we say good evening to you. Do not forget our Facebook page, Newsmaker Live Facebook page. You could log on, you could watch the broadcast, and also you can participate in the conversation. Newsmaker Live Facebook page. What would have happened when the United Workers' Party came into office in June of 2016? What would have been our standing there in the eyes of the European Union as far as being a tax destination, a tax haven?
Well, Tim, I don't think the eyes of the EU was on St. Lucia as of 2016, June 2016. I think what has been happening within the European Union is that you have a lot of businesses and persons who believe that the taxation or taxes in the EU is just too high. And they are finding ways or creative ways of getting, avoiding these taxes. And we have various territories, jurisdictions that have very attractive tax legislations. So therefore, these individuals look on the outside and realize that if they were to invest in certain jurisdictions, if they were to put their monies in certain jurisdictions, that they would be able to avoid the taxes that they are paying in the EU. So the EU, of course, they had their eyes on these jurisdictions for a very long time, and it just happened to be at that particular time, I'm referring to 2017, it's only last year that we got a letter from the EU asking us to commit to various concerns that they actually expressed.
But what is our standing when the United Workers' Party came into office in June of 2016? It
wasn't a standing. I need to make it clear that the blacklisting is not a penalty. It's more or less like a warning. So therefore, So
we were not on the blacklist at that time?
We were not on the blacklist, but I'm just saying nothing really changed with our tax legislation and so on. So I'm saying it's just a matter of time that we would have received the letter. In fact, even though the Labour Party had remained in government, they would have received the same letter.
When was the government alerted by the European Union?
The government alerted sometime late in the year, late last year. And we attempted to respond. We did respond, but we responded too late.
Okay, but you said late in the year. So we were blacklisted in December of last year.
We had a deadline. We had a deadline of December 5th, I think it was.
So it came into effect in December. But when did the government given wind that the EU was very concerned?
About a month or two before that deadline, because they usually give you 1 or 2 months to respond. We did respond. I said we did respond.
And you said that you responded late, but why the tardiness on the part of the government?
I mean, there are certain things when you receive such a letter, you have to put your team together. You have to look at your entire legislation and to see and respond to the request of the EU. And it's not a matter of just you sitting there and you receive a letter and you just said, I commit to these things. You have to look at your own legislation and your competitiveness and see how it'll affect you as a jurisdiction. We did that, and we did respond, but as I said to you, I wouldn't say late per se, it's just that they had received the letter beyond the 5th of December.
But were you given a deadline at the time?
That's the 5th. That was the 5th.
Right, you got a deadline.
Yes.
But don't you think it would have worked to the benefit of St. Lucia? Because we keep hearing from the opposition that this has impacted our image.
Yes.
If you're giving a December the 5th deadline, why not work around the deadline and also continue to inform the European Union of what you were doing?
Well,
don't you think they would be reasonable enough to give you at least more time?
Well, the opposition said that it has damaged our image, but they have not expressed or they have not told the public as to how our image was damaged. This is just rhetoric.
But forget the opposition.
Yes.
Forget the opposition.
Yes.
What about your dealings with the EU on this pending date, which is December the 5th, 2017?
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
When we received the letter, I'm saying we had to sit as a cabinet, as a Ministry of Finance, and look at everything they're asking us to do, their concerns. And I mean, we had a decision. We had an option either to adhere to the commitment or not to adhere to the commitments. So we had back and forth. We had decisions. We had consultations. Not just with, we had internal and external consultations with this thing here.
But those external consultations did not include the EU. Would they have included the EU before this?
At the time, it could not have included the EU. But what I'm saying to you here, we understand that even though we were put on the blacklist, it's not, I would say, a penalty to anything per se, because we know what exactly they were asking for, and that's why, in fact, the official word that we got from them in terms of the removing us from the blacklist to the grey list, well, I think they had already made decisions sometime in February. I think it was February 14th. But the official word actually came out, I think, was it 13th? That was yesterday. Mm-hmm. So we knew that. So just 1 month after we submitted the letter, we knew that we were clear. So it's not a big deal per se, because we still have the opportunity to meet the commitments that the EU is asking from us.
So why are you saying it's not a big deal when you're talking about facing the ignominy of being blacklisted? You are blacklisted for a particular thing as far as the European Union is concerned. You're considered to be a territory that is not cooperating with the European Union. How would other players say this?
No, we have cooperated. That's the reason we actually send them our commitment letter. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they're asking us to commit to various changes in our tax legislation and that we are refusing or we have refused. We have agreed to make the changes. Hence the reason for removing us from the blacklist to the grey list.
Now, when you're looking at your tax structure and making those changes and so on, don't you take such issues into consideration, what the European Union, the OECD will say, how they will respond, how will they react? Shouldn't you be anticipating?
Well, now you have to do it. I mean, back in the day, I mean, you sit here and when I say here in St. Lucia, and you design your taxes and without thinking outside of St. Lucia. Of course, you have a regulator, which is the ECCB, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. But in modern day, with all of these agreements that we have signed, tax agreements we have signed, we have to take in consideration these agreements. And of course, now we are quite aware of the Code of Conduct group in the European Union, and therefore we have to ensure that whenever we are designing our tax policies, that we take these regulators into consideration.
But how we are supposed to do that when we consider ourselves to be an independent nation, and we are 39 and we're boasting about this? Well, Tim, does it really make sense?
It doesn't make sense, but Tim, you know how it's. In fact, when certain jurisdictions were mentioned or listed on that blacklist, I remember that, especially that of the Prime Minister of Dominica. He was very angry, and basically, what he was basically saying was that he sees these kinds of interventions or interferences as more or less financial imperialism. But that's the world we live in, Tim, and I understand why the European Union. I understand why, because it's my understanding as I said earlier, that you have a lot of businesses, a lot of taxes are being licked from the European Union because of the attractive taxes regimes or policies that we have in the Caribbean and elsewhere. In the region of 560 billion pounds of leakage taxes. And you know the European Union is very high on taxes. When I say high on taxes, they depend a lot on taxes for a lot of the services, health and otherwise. So I understand that such leakages of taxes are actually hurting their bottom line, their revenues. So they will be aggressive, and I understand. So, but you know, sometimes it is said that when the elephant dances, the grass suffers.
But how is this impacting us financially?
Well, this hasn't impacted us as yet because we have to now adjust our tax.
Does that mean we could become less attractive?
There is a possibility, but of course, you know, necessity is more or less the mother of invention. And I believe we are very progressive government, and we'll find creative ways of dealing with this situation.
No matter how creative you are, you must keep the EU in mind, the OECD in mind.
Oh, yes.
To exactly what you do.
Yes, certainly. And that's the reason why, Tim, we stated in our manifesto that we will be looking at our tax regime, our tax structure in St. Lucia, and we will be reforming our tax regime. Now, when we said that, in fact, when that was written, we did not, of course, the EU was not in mind, you know, we didn't have the EU in mind. We looked at just what we had before us, our current tax regime, and what we can do to strengthen it, to make it more attractive. But going forward, we must take the concerns of the European Union into consideration, and it may or may not be favorable to St. Lucia, but it is something we must consider in our tax restructuring.
But after being blacklisted, now you put on a grey list, and at your press conference this week, you seem to be boasting and seeing this as some kind of achievement.
Yes. On
the part of St. Lucia. Don't you think it's just a case of St. Lucia and the other islands, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, just cowering to the wishes of those countries as opposed to putting up a fight? When will countries like St. Lucia stand up for something, that you believe in something, that you want to protect your interests?
Of course, I believe we have to be a responsible government, and we believe it was in the best interest of St. Lucia to agree to commit to the various concerns of the EU. And had we not done so, of course, I believe that's where the retaliation would have come in. That's where we could have said that St. Lucia is a non-cooperative jurisdiction. And of course, there are serious implications for being a non-cooperative jurisdiction.
What about there are instances where countries are not cooperating with us? Do we ever take a stand when countries are not cooperating with us for one reason or the other?
Which countries are you referring to?
I'm just saying, are there instances
well, Tim, I don't think you know our strengths.
When countries are not cooperating with us?
We're not in a position to flex our muscles at the bigger countries. And that's the reality. That's just the reality. And we have to deal with the reality as it currently exists.
So if you're being bullied as a country, you must never stand up?
I would not say...
To defend yourself?
I would not say this is bullying. I wouldn't say it is bullying per se. As I said earlier, it is just the European Union responding to a critical crisis they have. But that is of the leakage of billions of dollars. And they are using, I guess, they're using the authority, they are using the... they have strength. The European Union has strength. So they're using that to try to see how they can protect themselves. But when they...
Shouldn't they impose penalties on persons who are probably seeking us out, or maybe impose certain stipulations on those corporations that are flouting those tax regulations in the EU, as opposed to targeting a country? Well, St. Lucia, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad. We just heard the Bahamas, the U.S. Virgin Islands also.
And St. Kitts.
And St. Kitts.
Yes, yes, the three of them. Tim, what has happened over the years that our traditional ways of earning revenue, foreign exchange, has dwindled. We have situations where there were times when we used to get a lot of grants, a lot of financial aid. We had the bananas when we were more on agriculturally based economies. These days are almost over. So the countries, our jurisdictions, the small island development states, we had to become very creative in trying to see how we can get.
Have we?
Yes, I think we have, to some extent, we have become creative.
In what way? In the case of St. Lucia, in what way?
Yeah.
By this, the Citizen by Investment Program?
That's creativity.
The Residents by Investment Program?
That's creativity.
So don't you think that the EU is looking at those programs?
Yes.
And because
yes, they are.
On February 19th, the OECD issued a consultation document on preventing the abuse of residents
I saw that.
by investment schemes
Yes.
to circumvent reporting on the financial assets of the nationals. So the EU is coming from the CBI,
correct,
Citizen by Investment Program.
They are.
And you saying
yes.
that we are being creative.
Well, at the time when it was created, mm-hmm. because you never thought that would have happened. But as I said to you,
but still on the CBI issue, and I know we're moving away from the tax to the CBI. What is so creative about the Citizen by Investment Program?
What I'm saying, Hetif, we had to design a way of attracting revenues to our shores, and that's what happened. And when you look at countries like St. Kitts, they have thrived on that CBI or CIP for a number of years. Mm. I think 40% of their revenues are from CIP.
They started this a long time ago, in the early 80s.
Yes, they have. Mm-hmm. Okay. Dominica, when you look at Dominica, the revenues that they have earned over the years, it's just massive. So I'm saying that you had to have a way, you had to create a way of earning the revenues. That's why I'm saying it was creative. Maybe the creativity is not sustainable. I don't think it is sustainable. But you have to get out of what you do at the time when you can get it.
Again, what if the EU goes, and it intends to, that's the impression I'm getting, it goes for the Citizen by Investment Program?
Yes.
What's next for us? Will we cower again to the EU as far as the Citizenship by Investment Program and the other initiatives are concerned, the residency programs?
Well, I wouldn't say cower, Tim. I think it's more about cooperating. I use the word cooperating because, again, we have signed up to so many treaties, so many agreements, and it's like there is no turning back, so to speak. So I wouldn't say cower, and I would say, of course, to some extent, one can label it as financial imperialism to some extent. But I understand, as I said, as a leader, as a minister, as one who understands the need for revenue of a country, on both sides, on my side and on the EU side. I understand why they would do such a thing.
How much thinking goes into whether we should sign an agreement or convention or those kind of stipulations? Or is a case where we just do not have a choice in the matter?
To some extent.
We delay a little bit,
yeah,
but eventually we sign.
To some extent, Tim, our economies are highly dependent on these bigger countries, to a large extent. And these jurisdictions understand that very well. And to some extent, it's not that we don't have a choice, but if we decide not to go with the flow or to agree to what they're asking us to do, we understand and they understand the implications that will come with it. And so we ask ourselves, should we don't cooperate at all, or should we? And we have to weigh the pros and cons. We have to look at the pros and cons. And most times we end up signing up to these agreements.
At least put up a fight.
But it's not that some of the agreements are bad. I mean, when you look at the fact that we have to sign up for the particular one, I just can't remember, but basically it's one where these countries are trying to ensure that there is not financing of terrorism and the anti-money laundering, that we don't facilitate these kinds of criminal activities. So we have to cooperate to such agreements. And there's nothing wrong with such.
Okay.
Yes.
But in the case of the blacklisting of tax havens and so on, and they're going after various territories. Why do you think we are not uniting, coming together to present a united position to the European Union? We seem to be doing it individually.
Well, in terms of the blacklisting, you have, of course, the European Union, the Code of Conduct. They looked at each individual country's tax policies or legislation policies and perhaps the administrative processes. And based on the assessment of each individual's tax policies and so on, they would ask for certain commitments, okay? But in the case of the CBI, the CIP, I believe it is easier for the region to come together, and that's what the Prime Minister has always been asking for, to have a unified legislation that where we will not compete against each other, where we may even comply with some of the requirements of the European Union. But as it currently stands, I believe each jurisdiction is trying to see how much they can get out of that pool. But the good thing about St. Lucia CIP, though we came in with the last jurisdiction to come in, I believe that with this new administration, we have strengthened, especially our due diligence. We are being commended for the way that we go ahead in deciding who gets a passport or who doesn't get a passport. And this is something that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet Ministers take very, very seriously.
Who's commending St. Lucia for this? Because clearly the opposition is not commending St. Lucia, because what they're saying is it's taking much too long before somebody gets the passport. Should the due diligence be over, what, a year or 2 years? Should it be that long?
Well, probably that's the reason why they should commend us, because it takes long, maybe too long, but long enough to ensure that you investigate, or you look into the people that the persons that you actually give your passport. And that should be commended, Tim, because we have to be careful who we bring to our shores or who owns our passport, because the entire country could be in jeopardy just by one person committing an act, a criminal act, with our passports. So, talking about the opposition, I mean, they'll all oppose. You know, everything this government has done, the opposition has opposed. So that's why I referred to them yesterday as a nagging and negative opposition.
But does that make St. Lucia unattractive as far as a CBI destination is concerned, or jurisdiction? Because if it's taking so long,
yes,
somebody who does not have the time to invest in waiting that long can turn to some other territory.
It could be attractive.
Grenada,
it could be unattractive to some extent if it's too long. But again, it depends on the product that you're selling.
What is the average wait for St. Lucia for a passport, as far as you're aware?
I know there are some 100 and something waiting, because
but
as I said,
the period that they have to wait for the passport, the citizens or the people who are applying for citizenship via CIP.
I am not too sure exactly how long, Tim, but long enough to ensure that we vet these individuals thoroughly.
Now, the EU is really putting its weight on us,
yes,
as far as this whole tax issue is concerned. We are now in the grey list, and we're boasting about this, we're cheering, we believe we have achieved a whole lot. Are we looking to the point where we'll be totally delisted? What will it take?
Oh, that's the plan. That's the plan.
What will it take?
Well, committing to the commitments. In other words, ensuring that we deliver on these commitments. And as I said to you, we told them that we'll be doing this, we'll be doing that. So now the Ministry of Finance is highly activated in ensuring that we meet these commitments.
In this case, have we been given a deadline to be removed from the grey list?
I am not too sure if we were. I can't remember if we were given a deadline, but I'm sure we would have. They would have given us a deadline. Generally a year, if I read correctly somewhere. Generally a year, but sometimes they can call upon you anytime for updates.
What does it take from you all financially to ensure that you satisfy the demands of the European Union? Does it take a lot? Do you have to get overseas human resources to help you and so on?
Well, we have consultations with the various individuals, and we use all the experts that we can use to ensure that we comply. Okay,
so very soon the countries like St. Lucia can be considered to be very uncompetitive when it comes to issues of that nature, the whole tax issue. Can we envisage getting out of this altogether?
Well, I cannot foretell if we'll end up getting there. But as I said to you, Tim, we are a very progressive government, and we believe that as time changes, we will change with it. We see ourselves as a very resilient government, and as I said, we are always creating things. We're always changing things. And because of our resilience, that's the reason you find a lot of resistance. And we don't mind the resistance because when we talk about the path of change, there is always resistance on that path. So I don't foresee that the changes that we'll be making to our tax legislation would put us way behind, if at all, because we will change accordingly in terms of generating revenue for the country.
You're watching Newsmaker Live, and my guest this evening is Dr. Eubaldus Raymond. He is the Minister in the Ministry of Finance. We'll continue the discussion in just a moment, and of course later, your calls. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Once again, you are watching Newsmaker Live right here on DBS television. We conclude at 10 o'clock with the clip that peaked. Don't forget to follow us as well on our Newsmaker Live Facebook page. My guest this evening, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Eubaldus Raymond. As far as the Constitution of St. Lucia is concerned, the Minister of Finance must be an elected MP. You're a Minister in the Ministry of Finance. But have you all circumvented something? Have you all tried to be creative? Here we go with that word again. And you are substantively the Minister of Finance of St. Lucia, because you seem to be speaking on everything to do with finance.
I am not the only one who speak on the matters of taxation or taxes in this country.
But the main individual speaks on it.
The Prime Minister does it. The Prime Minister does it regularly. Mm-hmm. But I am not the Minister for Finance. The Prime Minister he is the elected member, but I play a critical role in the Ministry of Finance. And
what, to the extent you represent us at Ministers of Finance meetings?
Yes, I do.
The ECCB?
The ECCB, I'm a delegate for.
I think recently you were in Dominica, right? Just before the hurricane.
Correct. Yes, in the absence of the Prime Minister, a delegation went up there. I represented the Prime Minister. Go to various finance and development meetings, the World Bank meetings that is held every spring and every fall. So, I mean, given the Prime Minister's busy schedule and necessary busy schedule, that is, I believe that I play a critical role in that ministry.
Is that what you always wanted to do? Because I remember in the previous St. Lucia Labour Party administration, you left a few years before because I think you're not so comfortable serving as the Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Consumer Affairs.
No, that's not the case. That's not the case. I wanted to be able to serve in an area where I believe I could have made a meaningful contribution.
Finance?
Any area at all, in a meaningful contribution.
So you were not of the belief then that you could have served in the Ministry of Commerce, Consumer Affairs, Investment as a Parliamentary Secretary?
Well, Tim, there was more to just the position. It had a lot to do with respect. Mm-hmm. Yes.
You feel you were disrespected at the time?
Correct.
On what basis?
On the fact that the Prime Minister never allowed me to attend a cabinet meeting for 9 months, even in the absence of the Minister of Commerce, that was Ms.
Emma Hippolyte.
Yes, and there are other issues, and I have my pride and I have my dignity that I'll always protect. So I willfully resigned after 9 months. And no regrets at all, and I respectfully resigned. And no hard feelings. I just did what I had to do.
And you believe that you had to change, that should have caused you to change allegiance from the St. Lucia Labour Party so quickly to the United Workers' Party?
Well, I actually bought into the vision of the Prime Minister. While I was working in the Turks and Caicos Islands, I was corresponding with him and a particular minister at the time, MP at the time. And on a few occasions, I would be talking with him over the phone. When I come back here, I would meet with him, and I said, look, Chief, I believe in your vision for St. Lucia. You are thinking my way, and I believe that the vision that you have for St. Lucia is the best for St. Lucia. And so therefore I had absolutely no hesitation in joining in with the Alan Shastney at the time, and I'm happy that today he's the Prime Minister unfolding the vision for St. Lucia.
Do you believe, my question to you is, why do you think it's so easy, it appears, for politicians to change allegiance from one party to the other? Because it appears to be so opportunistic.
It wasn't, because just remember,
because if you were Deputy Prime Minister under the previous administration, I don't think you would have just left to join the United Workers'
But just remember, Tim, I left a government after 9 months. I left a government while in government. Or I left a party while in government, don't forget that. Other people who wait until when the party loses and while in opposition will join the other party. Okay? So it wasn't opportunistic. I believe, as I said to you, I have my dignity and pride to protect. And I will always protect these two. Okay? So, and I would say to you that I was blind, or not blind, but I was confused as to the direction of the last administration. There was not any clear path as to where they want to go, where they want to reach. But with this current administration, under the leadership of Alan Shastney, I can see where we are heading. We have a clear path, and we have directions. And I said to you, and I believe that we are achieving slowly. We are seeing some small shoots, I would say, of our vision for this country.
You reported during your press conference this week that St. Lucia, the economy grew by 3%
yes.
in 2017.
Yes.
To what would you attribute that?
Well, based on the numbers that we got, tourism, manufacturing, tourism, manufacturing, and there is one other, I think, these are the two major ones. Tourism, of course, grew by 11%, and in fact, for the very first time, we have a record. In fact, I should say we have a record number of tourist arrivals in St. Lucia. 1.1 million tourists coming to our shores. That's a record. That's a record high.
Barbados is also experiencing an increase in visitor arrivals as well.
Yes.
In a nutshell, when we're talking about economic growth, there are a number of people who are watching this broadcast who will ask, what growth are you talking about? Because they're not feeling the effects of that growth. It seems to be sometimes a tough sell to boast about economic growth, and people are not feeling the real impact.
Well, first of all, Tim, economic growth is a necessity. And what do we mean by economic growth? It's just the increased economic activity. Of course, it's measured yearly, and then you have a number based on our current, and we call that the GDP, so to speak. And the current GDP is like $4.6 or $4.7 billion. It's important that the growth is felt, very, very important. And as I said to you, that the major driver of our growth is tourism. The good thing about tourism is that it touches almost all sectors. But we want to go further with these kinds of growth. We want to make sure that because tourism is our major driver for growth in this country, we want to bring it closer to the individuals, or to communities, to villages, and that's why we are focusing a lot on village tourism, where the villagers, people in Ancillary, Canaries, Labrie, and Dennery, and other places, will have a direct benefit, so to speak, of the tourism dollar. So yes, growth is important, but we have to be able to strategize in such a way, design your sector in such a way that that growth is spread as much as possible over your throughout your country.
Because we continue to hear, for example, there's need for a better linkage between tourism and agriculture.
Yes.
Definitely,
Yes.
the farmers are not benefiting as they should from the tourism sector, irrespective of us boasting about us having, what, over 1 million visitors, a record.
Yes.
They're saying that they're just not feeling the spin-off.
Well, I think there is potential for greater spill-off. There is potential. I mean, I remember clearly there is a particular hotel that actually contributed just 2016. I haven't gotten the 2017 numbers as yet. In 2016, directly, they contributed $60 million US. That's directly in terms of salaries and utilities and so on. And when you have to factor in the spillover effect of that $60 million, the non-direct or the indirect revenues that hotel actually generated in our country, that is just massive. So there is a lot of linkages, but as I said, it is up to the farmers to ensure that they are able to capitalize as much as possible from these linkages.
But with
and not just the farmers, of course, you have other service providers to the hotels.
But with the record visitor arrivals, what about the all-inclusives? The fact that so many of the visitors coming into St. Lucia would stay in the hotels, and from entertainment to, for example, being in a gym, they really do not have to venture out. And with the talk of crime on the increase in St. Lucia and a number of the other islands, do you think that is robbing us of the needed foreign exchange from those visitors to ensure that they spend, that they pass on the various earnings to the ordinary man in the street?
Well, the all-inclusive is a product. It's a product that the hotelier actually sells. And that's what actually attracted the people to our shores. So without that product, you would not have the visitors coming in. Okay? Of course, even though you have the all-inclusive, the individuals remain at the hotels and so on. You mentioned entertainment. Who are the ones providing entertainment? Who are the ones actually providing the food? I mean, the produce, the farmers. Who are the ones who provide the taxi, the services?
But you agree that a lot of the produce are being imported by the hotels?
Yes, a lot of produce, but that's what I'm saying, that I believe that our farmers and service providers there's great potential for greater benefits of these linkages.
But how do you ensure that you provide, you armor farmers with the necessary skills, with the resources, so that they could take advantage of the increased visitor arrivals to St. Lucia? Well,
I believe that when it says skills, I'm not too sure what exactly you're referring to. I believe the Ministry of Agriculture, they have a role to play in terms of with regards to the agricultural sector. In terms of training, I'm sure that the Ministry of Agriculture does provide some training, particularly, especially through the Taiwanese mission to St. Lucia. But I believe that the farmers can organize themselves for cooperatives and so on, so that they can be, I would say, be able to produce at greater volumes and lower costs per unit and so on. So sometimes just remember, farming is a business, you understand? And the farmers must develop the skills, not just the agricultural skills, but other soft skills like the accounting and so on, to make sure that they have a thriving business. So, whereas they have to have that personal responsibility for the business, the Ministry of Finance, not the Ministry of Finance, but the Ministry of Agriculture does provide them some support.
How does this government intend to differentiate itself from the previous administration with the overdependence on tourism? That would have been one of the shortcomings, some people tell you, of the previous administration. So if you have an increase in visitor arrivals, you have an increase, maybe automatically you have an increase in spending. Some people would be feeling the positive effects of the increased arrivals and so on. But what if you have, God forbid, you have another 9/11? What is there for us to fall back on in St. Lucia? So is there a need for the government to have better foresight to look at other areas where, for example, in the event that we have shortfalls in the tourism sector, that we can continue to succeed as a destination?
Well, Tim, that's a very good question. And you're right that no country should try to have themselves to be over-reliant on just one area, one sector. You're correct. That's what we have now. So we are trying to see how much we can maximize on the tourism product sector. Sometimes, you know, we are too quick to talk about diversification. It's good, but I think what you must first do is to ensure that you maximize what you have currently. And if you believe that what you have has been exhausted, then you can branch out. I'm not saying you have to wait until when you have maxed that potential, but I'm saying that sometimes we are too quick. Let us do good in what we're doing now in terms of tourism. Let us see how much we can get out of the tourism dollar. As I said, something new, the village tourism, that's a new area we're moving into. So the government is looking at the resilience in terms of the human resource. We believe that we have a very we're supposed to be more progressive in terms of our educational system. I mean, look at today. We are in a technology world, and then we still have students carrying a knapsack, a big bag on the backs. Sometimes they can't even well carry the bags, and we have iPads. Mm-hmm. Why can't we have these books on these iPads? So I'm saying that I think there are ways of creating other avenues for development, other avenues for revenue generation, and we believe that the human resource development is a key area that the government is focusing on.
But don't you think that will take some time before we start to experience the results of that?
Development is a process. And John Compton always says it that way. So John Compton, it's a drop, a drop, a drop, a drop. Now, I'm not too sure. I mean, he said a drop, a drop, a drop. But I believe in today's world, the pace of development, I believe is a cup, a cup, a cup. Because we have to move very quickly with development.
And our pace, what do you think our pace is right now?
I believe we're in a good path right now. Very, very good path. And that's why I said to you, the guy they call Alan Chastney, I love this guy because I believe in his vision, and I believe it's he is so different. And you know, if St. Lucians give us another 5 years, you'll see a massive change. You'll see changes in this first 5 years, but we're asking for 10 years, at least 10 years. And especially when you look at what we want to do with the south of the island, we believe that the people of the south have been very disadvantaged for too long. They have been disadvantaged for too long. The focus of development has been in the north of the island, and the people of the south is more or less like the what do you call it, the stepchild, you know, the adopted child. And everything that you need, the people of the south need, they have to come to the north. And if a young person wants to go to movies in an evening or Sunday afternoon, that young person has to come all the way to Castries, and sometimes they have problems going back to Viewfort because of transportation. So we have a vision for the south. I mean, and again, you have a lot of resistance, but we believe that the change that we have and the vision we have for the south would not just do the south very well, but it'll augur very well for the entire
what do you call resistance? Don't you think is a case of people having this say on a very controversial project that could impact their lives, that could certainly affect their future, and therefore they have a right to voice their concerns and to make their complaints?
When you say affect their lives, Tim, you're talking about the unemployed mother, the unemployed father, who will be getting the opportunity to get a job. Is this what is being resisted? You're talking about individuals who don't have to come to Castries for everything they need, live in the south, coming to the north for everything they need, but everything is in the south? Are you creating resistance for such?
In their eyes, don't you think they might see it probably as short-term gain? What about, from their perspective, long-term implications of major projects? Don't you think that the major projects that any government want to undertake that would impact the lives of those people in where that particular initiative will be undertaken,
yes,
they have a right to voice their opinion and to have a say?
You see, Tim, the South has been neglected for too long, and therefore the South needs a big push. The pace of growth in the North, the South needs even faster growth than what we did in the North because of the neglect over the years, okay? And I mean, the situation in the South is not just about economics, you know, it's about social. There are a lot of social problems in the South, okay? And we believe that what is lacking, the major dearth in the South, is that of economic development. The people in the South need jobs, and that's what we intend to do for them. And we will not cower from the resistance.
And of course, you know that we're referring to DSH. How soon does the government, in a major way, plan to undertake this initiative?
Tim, development of the South is beyond DSH. Remember that. It's beyond DSH. Okay? We are talking about the other businesses that will be created with the injection of the DSH in the South. So which means that the unemployed father, the unemployed mother, the unemployed young person in the South could be an entrepreneur, a business person in the next year or two with the injection of the DSH in the South. So it's not just DSH. People have to see beyond just DSH. But when I say people in the South, when I say people, I'm referring to people in the South. And by the way, Tim, I believe the whole resistance of change in the South is not necessarily those from the South, you know. Because I was driving in the South, I was in the South, I was going around the island, I stopped in the South. And I met two young ladies, okay, came to have lunch by the beach. And they said to me, let me tell you something, man, don't listen to these guys, you know, come quickly, you know, don't listen to these guys, we want our jobs. The people in the South need jobs. And the people who are resisting the development in the South, they have jobs. And they're in the North, most of them, okay? So we believe the time has come for the people of the South. And when I say South, Tim, I'm not referring just to Vieux-Fort North, Vieux-Fort South. I'm referring to Labrie, Choiseul, Micoud. Because we believe that with this massive plan we have for the South, development plan we have for the South, it will wave into the other districts.
Does the government plan to undertake the DSH in a big way before the next general election?
It's a process, Tim. It's a process. It's a process. And when you're dealing with investors, you are always precaution. You always exercise precaution. Okay? When I say precaution, so you may have your plans now you may have your plans for tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and then something changes. Okay? As I said, we have said before, nothing has been written in concrete, or in stone rather, but the plan is there. And we have that plan for the South, and we believe that when it takes full effect, the people of the South would be very proud.
Now, you said that the government would require another 5 years,
yes,
to complete,
yes,
whatever initiatives that it would want to undertake,
yes,
for the benefit of the South, and I imagine for St. Lucia as a whole.
Yes.
But you have to earn that right.
Correct.
You have to earn it between now,
correct,
and the next general election due in 2021.
Yes.
On this particular path, with, for example, between yesterday and today,
yes,
we had two hangings by effigy. One in Castries Central,
yeah,
featuring the MP, Mrs. Sarah Flood Bobra, and
yes,
today one at Leclerc, featuring Mr. Stevenson King.
yes.
Now, whenever those things happen, I imagine that as a government, you'd have to be on the alert. You have to look out, because there's some kind of resentment on the part of constituents.
Yeah.
Some expressing concern with regard maybe to how you're managing the affairs of that particular constituency, in this case,
Yes.
Castries Central and Castries North. How are you viewing this particular issue?
Well, Tim, I must remind you and listeners that you had 36,000 plus people who voted for the Labour Party in last elections, compared to the 45, I think, 43, 44, 45 individuals who vote for
43,000 other.
Yeah, for the United Workers' Party. So out of the 36,000, just one or two individuals who can actually exercise, I guess, their rights to of these effigies. I mean, and one has to understand why. I guess we don't know why, who. I mean, why? I mean,
but do you ignore such issues?
I mean, you don't ignore it completely, but sometimes you just can't avoid such things, Tim, because you have individuals who just play the politics, okay? Make it pretend that the individual is not doing anything for them and all kind of stuff. But sometimes it's more personal than for the constituency, because I know for sure that Stevenson King is working very hard in Castries North. And I know for sure that Minister Sarah Flood, Bob Byrne, is working very hard in Castries Central. And of course, you cannot please everybody. You'll always have some individuals who will feel that you are not giving them a job, you're not giving them a contract, that kind of stuff. And these these are the individuals who will do such things. But again, I don't know why it was done, but there's always that possibility that individuals do these things because they are not, quote unquote, taken care of.
Are you looking forward to ever contesting general elections in St. Lucia again?
Tim, I don't know the future. I don't know the future, but as long as I can get a chance to serve this country, I will.
You're watching Newsmaker Live, and my guest this evening is Dr. Yabeldes Raymond. He is the Minister in the Ministry of Finance. When we come back, your calls, so please stay with us. We are on DBS television. Also monitor us, Newsmaker Live, on our Facebook page. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll put the telephone number on screen right now so that you can call with your questions and comments for my guest. Once again, it is Dr. Yabeldes Raymond, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance. And so far, we've been focusing on the decision by the EU to remove us from the blacklist as a tax destination, or tax nation, sorry, and also been focusing on the 3% economic growth recorded by St. Lucia in 2017. We have our first caller line. Good evening, you're on the air. Hello?
A broadcasting service. I'm sorry, we are not.
Okay, well, was that call? But continue to call us once again as we continue our discussion here on the broadcast with my guest, of course, Dr. Yabeldes Raymond, Senator as well, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance. There's talk of St. Lucia, the rate of inflation being 0.1%. That's a very insignificant increase, but we have a call. Good evening, you're on the air. Hello? Hello, good evening. Okay, you lost that call, but...
Tim, that is insignificant, but I can say to you that when you compare the rate of inflation of our neighboring countries, islands, especially those in the ECCU, Eastern Caribbean, they have inflation rates of 1, 2, 3%. What makes the difference in St. Lucia?
Okay. My apologies to you.
Yes,
I'm told that we have a call, so let's ensure that we have that call. Good evening.
Good evening, Timothy.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Yes, and good evening to the Minister. I know that the government depends on the revenue. Income tax revenue, okay? But do you think there's a level playing field in we St. Lucians paying taxes? That's for the Minister.
Okay, you'll have to repeat that question again because you could not hear you.
I said I know that the hello? I don't know, something is wrong.
Okay,
hello?
Go again. Okay, but repeat the question. I'll relate to him. Go ahead, please.
I said, I know that the government is dependent on the revenue from the tax office, okay? From recent Lucians paying taxes. That's part of their revenue.
All right, you can hear now.
Okay? Do you think there's I'm addressing the minister.
Yes.
Do you think there's a level playing field in St. Lucians paying taxes, sir? Or have they really done their homework in the tax office? Do you think so?
When you say level playing field, ma'am, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to.
Okay, the level playing field, I'll take the number one, the property tax. Okay?
Yes.
That's the first one.
Okay.
Property tax. I know. I live in North America. You live in North America. Okay? I know when you pay taxes for a service. For a service. Okay, sir?
Correct.
Now take property tax. I'm taking again, I'm going to take the Cap Estate area.
Yes.
Government come, government go. No government choose to fix roads for us at Cap. We build at Cap, we have to build a water tank as big as the house. We didn't have water from Wasco. We then got it a few years ago. Once a week, you might get water flowing in the tanks. Okay? We did not have any street lights. I had to beg for a light. Okay? Now we have a light, we have the garbage collection. But is it fair to us to pay property tax when we never got a service at Cap Estate? Is it very fair? That's number one.
Yes.
Number two, taxes. Do you think it's wise to pay taxes if there isn't a level playing field where there are certain professions where certain people do private work and some people work with government? It's your choice to get out there and hustle and fight to get work as a professional, whatever. I wouldn't mention them because they'll start saying I'm biased, okay? And you go out there to feed your family, pay your mortgage and whatnot. But there are people in the other departments in government that are working with government, so they have one salary in one back pocket and a salary in the other back pocket, which means they choose to work with government, but they choose to do private work out and then work with government. So they get a salary with government and they make their money outside there. Now that is defeating the purpose of a person, a professional, okay, doing being a freelancer, okay, but yet they have to be paying taxes. Now, that is not fair. To me, the way you do things, do your homework, get a level playing field, then you come after St. Lucians. But to come after St. Lucians because you all need revenue to run the country, and I agree, because North America is on that way to run the country. But you have to do your homework, sir. That is what I'm saying. I heard you said you went around the island on Sunday. I went around the island, but I'll tell you something. We need to start with the little things first and then get to the big things. I passed by St. Jude's Hospital, the stadium. My God, two lawnmowers or weed whackers would do the job. You mean to tell me they cannot clean in front of that area, plant some flowers, put a rock garden that the sick people can come out a little bit who can walk, that can help their minds. You can paint the place. You can get some bed sheets, get all kinds of people that donate these things. Let us clean up the things first, and then let us go after the big things. Because let me tell you, God did not put us on hold to get sick and say, well, a hospital will be built in 3, 4, or 5 years, you know. God have us on that hold, you know. Because when we have to get sick, we get sick. If we have to die, we die. So we need something right now that is very pleasant, something that you all can say, well, the last government didn't do it that way, they didn't finish it, let me finish it, and let me enhance it. So when I get on a platform, I can beat my chest and say, I finished what the last government didn't do. I enhanced what the last government didn't do. So we St. Lucians are satisfied, sir. My government, which is you all, I am trying to conduct you all on what you all should do. Whether you all think my words are no words at all or it fall by the wayside, start with the little things. I've said you do not build a house by building blocks and putting a roof with no foundation. You understand? Because what you're going to have is blocks and a roof on dirt, so we become dirt. You understand what I'm
all
saying
right.
to you?
Thank you so much. Appreciate the contribution. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I think the caller made a lot of sense, and I'll just address just one, that of the property tax. That's the thinking of the Prime Minister, because we will be undertaking a tax reform, and you may be quite aware that there is an amnesty on tax on property tax, residential property taxes. So during that period, we will be reforming it. So when come January, I think it's 2019, we'd have had a reformed property tax.
You have it on the call?
Yes.
Good evening. This is Newsmaker Live. You're on the air.
Good night, team. Good night, Minister. Hello?
Hi, yes, good evening to you.
Yes.
Minister, can you give us the physical position of our country?
When you say physical position, what do you mean?
The physical position of our country, please.
Physical in what sense, ma'am? May I ask?
Do you mean the fiscal position?
The fiscal or the physical? I'm trying to understand what she's asking.
Hello? In terms of our debt? Okay, we lost a caller. You're trying to comprehend exactly what you're saying.
The caller earlier was talking about the system in the United States where you pay taxes based on zones where you live. So that's why you have certain areas, the high-end housing areas, they have all the amenities, all the nice roads and so on. But it's a good thing and also a bad thing. When I say good, in the sense that you pay taxes based on the group of services that you receive. Now, if you go to a poor neighborhood which has lower value homes and properties, it means that lower taxes will be collected, and therefore the services that the individuals would be exposed to would not be comparable to other areas.
We have on the call. Good evening, Newsmaker Live. You're on the air.
Yes, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, sir.
And good evening to the minister.
Good evening to you, sir. I
sat there and I heard a certain statement that the minister made about books. Books are so heavy that they should have iPad. But the previous government introduced computers, laptops. They introduced that, and this present government, which I am supporting, took that out from the school and brought it to one private school. Are you saying that you're questioning the mentality of your leader? When you look at the direction we are heading, we have lost sight. We have no vision. You spoke about tourism. When Tim questioned you about the farmers and the importation of vegetables, this stuff, yes, it's not you that should be answering that. But again, the locals does not even want to buy from the locals. They rather buy imported things which is filled with chemical, and it's affecting the health of the people. You think most of the volume of agricultural things that we are importing, you think these things are that healthy? Just give it 2 days in the sun and you'll see the state of it. That is how our body going, because we damaging our body, and we will always have these things because we are lack of vision. And you spoke about give you all another 5 years. St. Lucian must be mad.
Thank you so much for calling,
well,
sir.
Tim, let me correct the gentleman here. There's no truth to the gentleman saying that we took.
Okay, Mr. Producer, can you just cut off the call, and maybe you'll have to handle the calls from your end, because when I cut them off, they're still on.
Yeah,
go ahead.
There's no truth to the assertion that we gave actually computers to a particular school. As I said to you, yes, there was a laptop program in St. Lucia, and of course, yes. But it was just one form of all the schools. So why would you discriminate discriminate against the other students and give it to just one form? That's just one flaw of that program. And the second thing
I think in that particular case, the donation was made to a private institution.
From who?
A private institution.
From?
Wasn't it from the government, no? Wasn't it from the government to a private institution?
I first time hearing this.
Okay.
But I'm saying here, if you talk about laptops, have a laptop with a program, but not just laptops to one particular group of students. What about the other students? You were saying that just one group of students require or need a laptop. What about the others? So we are saying, look, if we were to give that technology to students, it is better to give them iPads, because iPads are lighter to carry. They're the ones that carry all the apps and so on and so on and so on. So I'm saying that when we decide, when we will be moving with a new program of that technology, it will be different from what existed.
Hello, good evening. Go ahead, please. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, and good evening to the Senator Ibados,
Good evening to you, sir.
Okay, I'm listening to you, sir, and I am also, Tim, first of all, I want to say to you, well, I like the setting of your place, the way you have in the ministers, the people you've been on the show, exposed that everybody can see them. However, Mr. Minister, I would like to ask you this question. You said that the economy, there is growth in the economy, I think, by 3% thereabout, or in the tourism sector.
No, actually overall.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I am telling you, I am not seeing that growth. And I'll tell you why. I am a construction worker. I'm involved in the construction industry. Yes, we have some construction activity going on island-wide, but it's very, very little. And we have a population of maybe around 180,000 people thereabout. So therefore, if you have just about, let's just say, 10,000 of people feeling the blessing, you have roughly 160,000 persons still suffering. Now, let's just say there are some of these people, they are able to survive on their own because maybe some of them, they are venturing into other foreign countries where they're earning a life. But the majority of the people, sir, I can tell you, they are suffering. As a result, I want to use myself as an example. I am a family man, I'm a married man, and I have kids attending school and all of this. As the year starts, I have not worked, and I have been calling X, Y, Z, people that I know, contractors, and everybody have their little crew already. Also, in the rural areas where we venture into farming and so on, it is in a dilapidated state, my brother. The government does not, and be it whether this government or, the previous government, they don't really look after the farmers and the fishermen. Tourism, I understand, it is the main source for our country. But our country is an agriculture land. And we don't take care of our own. The Bible says, and you know that, charity begins home. But what I see is happening in our country is that the foreigners and the people abroad, they are getting it nice, be they are investor or whatever they are the one getting it nice. And our local people here, they are ready to pass away literally. My brother, I want to encourage you. I know at one time you were part of the St. Lucia Labour Party. You had your beef with them. You moved out and you are now serving on the United Workers' Party platform or bench rather. I respect that. You have your franchise. You exercise that wherever you want. But I want you to bring to your government and let him know that the country is not doing well. And I don't care who comes out and say it is doing well. I am telling you, I am watching you, and if I was next to you, I would shake you on and tell you we are not doing well. Things are hard. We are going through hardship in the country. And I'm telling you, I'm a family man, and I'm not work, and I've been looking for work everywhere. Imagine I have to be leaving the south to go all the way to Capes State, something to look for a little work. And sometimes even when you go there, the people still want to utilize you because they tell you things are hard. So where they have to pay you $150, they give you probably $100. And $25 passages coming from that money. My brother, tell your prime minister, we are not doing well. And if he don't take heed, I can tell you, he may not, and also the whole regime may not end up lasting the 5 years. Tell him put his ears to the ground and listen to the voice of the people.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you so much for calling, sir.
Tim, there's a vexing issue in St. Lucia. that is of unemployment. Okay? When we came into government in 2016, the unemployment rate was 24.2 or 3 thereabout, close to 25%. Okay? 1 year later, Tim, we were able to reduce that unemployment rate to about 21.3%. Today, it's about 20.1 or 20.2. Okay? So what we have seen over the years, I mean, over the months we have been here, a decline in the unemployment rate. Now, I understand that with growth, yes, we had 3% growth. And it doesn't mean that with a growth, everybody will be working. You will still have individuals who are actively seeking employment that will not be able to find jobs. And that is a reality. So, but even so, one cannot claim that the country is doing badly because they are unemployed. But what has to speak are the numbers. We were able to grow the economy since coming into government. We were able to grow the economy, now 3%. We were able to reduce the unemployment rate from 24 point something to 20.1. We were able to maintain a youth unemployment at 38%. In fact, when we came in 2016, the unemployment rate was above 42%, about 43%. Today it's 38%. So there are signs, as I said, there are signs of recovery, there are signs of growth in this country.
We have a call. Good evening. Thanks for holding on.
Hi, good evening, Timothy.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Junior speaking.
Good evening to you, sir.
And good evening to Honorable Raymond.
Good evening to you, sir.
I just wanted to clarify a few things that he spoke about earlier on, Mr. Raymond, regarding the laptops program.
Yes, sir.
Just to give you an indication that it was actually a lot more than a laptops program. It had actually become a full-fledged ICT program. So that, for instance, in the last year, there were over 3,800 laptops brought in. And I have to tell you that there was a deliberate decision to use laptops over iPads. Because I don't know if you've ever typed on an iPad, but it's not a very easy thing. So the selection was a very small laptop. I think it was about 12-inch screen or that sort of thing. But it would have been a laptop that was ideal for students and was actually being used worldwide for the use of students. Mm-hmm. So I would like to suggest you may want to consider the whole issue of the iPads. But in addition to the laptops, the 3,800 laptops, there were also 550 PCs which were brought in for computer labs, right? So that all the schools were then, the secondary schools were then able to actually get a full complement of PCs to, so that same thing that you're talking about in fact, to ensure that it's spread across the entire school benefiting, that was also done. Now, obviously, I mean, it would be ideal if you could be able to provide everybody with some sort of a device, but given our constraints as a country, it was still a very ambitious thing to at least do it one per year with the idea of Form 3. So they would have continued 3 until, so that everybody would get a laptop while they were at school. And then, of course, there was other aspects of the program, like ICT teacher training through the OAS. There was the GINet program, which I think is now being rolled out through the Ministry of Public Service and Information and Broadcasting. And there's also the EduNet, which was specifically focused to ensure greater bandwidth in schools. And that was supposed to have been funded through the Universal Service Fund, which was set up through the Telecommunications Act. So I'm not sure where the EduNet aspect is right now, but I'm just letting you know that it was, in fact, a lot broader than what you're suggesting. And it was, the whole idea was to ensure that you would end up getting greater access for everybody, not just in schools even, but even when they go into the communities in terms of Wi-Fi hotspots, that would have been submitted. But I just want to talk about the economy for a little bit.
Sure.
You said that there was 3% growth in the economy last year?
Yes, that is what was reported by the Statistics Department.
You sure it's not 2.5% growth?
No, it's not 2.5.
It's not 2.5% growth.
It's not 2.5.
It's 3% growth. Okay.
Yeah, right. you have the I think they call it the basic prices.
2.5.
Sorry? You have the basic prices, that is 2.5. And then you have the real GDP market price at 3%, and we always.
So you're using real GDP market price.
You have to use real GDP market price.
Very well. Okay.
Yes, because the 2.5.
I'm not sure that's normally what is quoted in economic.
Yeah, it's a real
literature. Normally, I would have thought that it was
the real one.
Nominal one.
The one that you're making reference to, you have to minus taxes and add subsidies to it.
Well, if you either way,
Yeah,
that's.
but it's
if you say
3%.
2.5, if you say 3, fine, we can look at 3.
It's 3.
But in terms of, and you did admit that, in fact, most of that growth was due to tourism.
Tourism, construction, and
Tourism and construction.
Construction, and there was
I think it said
one.
manufacturing.
Manufacturing.
Well,
Yes,
I'm not sure
yes.
that manufacturing really
Tourism.
grew that much. I'm not sure. But
Okay,
anyways,
yes.
but let's just say that the major driver of that was tourism and construction. Now, would you not say that, especially in the case of tourism, which is largely the bigger factor in the tourism is the stay-over arrivals, would it not be fair to say that because you had the Royalton opening up, which is the largest hotel on island right now, 456 rooms, that because of that, in fact, and of course you know how Royalton works, it's connected with Sunwing, they're very vertically integrated, and they bring in their own visitors from Canada mostly, and of course the UK through Thompson. So they actually were the major reason for that growth.
I wouldn't say because of Royalton. I would say it's partly because of Royalton.
But where else would you suggest that there was growth? I mean, I knew there was expansion in Windjammer.
Yes,
there was expansion. I mean, we can't really even talk about expansion in the Harbour Club in terms of tourism. But yes,
you had Harbour Club. You had the development,
but not for that financial year, not for that period.
Yes,
sorry, not for the period.
I would advise if you read the just printed social and economic review, it'll give you the drivers behind the growth.
No, I know, but still, we know Harbour Club just opened, so that was not within the reporting period.
It was
for 2017.
It was open.
So it would have affected the construction sector, yes, but it would not have affected.
What are you getting at, sir?
No, we are talking about growth, the 3%.
Yeah, exactly. And
yes.
so I'm saying
so
that the real drivers of that growth, the real driver of that growth in numbers, which is because of tourism, is largely because of Royalton.
Okay,
no.
And basically, to cut to the chase, caller, you're saying this initial Labour Party should take credit for that?
I'm not saying
No, I'm just asking.
But I'm just saying that we should be honest about.
I want to cut to the chase. I want to cut to the chase, sir. So I want to get to the point.
But nobody is being dishonest here, okay? You're talking about numbers. I am talking about growth. I'm talking about what are the drivers of the growth. I didn't tell you it was tourism numbers. I talk about construction and tourism.
Yeah, but the GDP factor that increased the most was tourism. You know that. And I think we can all see that if we look at all the numbers. So it was tourism that was really driving it, the increase, right? So, and that I'm saying is largely because of greater spend because of Royalton. It's clear. I mean, if you look at...
But I am saying to you, sir, I'm not disagreeing with you that Royalton is not part of. I'm not denying. I'm saying it is part of, but you're focusing on Royalton. And apparently the reason why you're saying Royalton, but there are others.
The raw figures. You have a hotel that is nearly 500 rooms. You have a room stock of 5,000 rooms right now because of that. Clearly, that's a huge impact. You're talking about that.
What is your point? No. Let's cut to the chase again. What is the point?
No, I'm just saying that we should be able to explain what these things are, because I've heard a lot of suggestions that certain economic reforms have led to this growth and are being suggested as to why this growth is occurring. And I don't really buy that argument at all. In fact, I think it's a very flawed argument.
So growth.
But anyways, the other thing I wanted to touch on
quickly
is the whole issue of the South. And you spoke very passionately about the South, Mr. Raymond. But I don't think you should look at persons' opposition or people's opposition to DSH as being anti-investment and anti-growth. Because nobody has an issue with the range development at Back Bay. Nobody has had an issue or raised any objection with the canals development. Nobody has had any great issue with these. And these are tourism, hotel expansions. I'm sure there's some people who have issues with them. I'm saying so. But you have not really heard anybody saying and coming out negatively about these projects. So to suggest that DSH is a litmus test for persons being negative about investment in the South is completely unfair. And I mean, if you look at the overall development in the South and the attitude towards certain projects like the St. Jude Hospital, like the administrative center, I mean, you're talking about people coming and doing business in the South. And how can you not have a fairly good government presence to ensure that that is actually happening? So I'm very concerned about some of the messaging. I think we should be fair. We should be objective about how we go about these things because, yes, you have the politics, but let's get through that issue. I think we all want to see development in our country, but it's not fair to take issues that people have, real issues in terms of land ownership, in terms of isolation of the people on the ground, with respect to DSH, and make it seem as if, these are just naysayers who have objections, when there has not even really been a proper dialogue and consultation on these projects.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you so much for calling, sir. What say you, Mr. Minister?
Well, I'm happy that the gentleman, I know him very well, he's for development, and that's exactly what we'll be undertaking in the South. And I'm saying that I understand some of the resistance that they have in the South, people opposing DSH, but we are looking at the real benefits of DSH and other developments in the South, how it will affect the common man on the street. We have a final call. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Don't get a heart attack, Tim.
Oh, it's Rick.
I don't normally go.
Yes, go ahead, Rick.
But I have to think. First of all, I really don't give a damn who registers growth in this country, whether it's the Labour Party or any party. I don't think people give a damn except the politicians about who is responsible for the growth or who was. I don't think people care unless you're a politician. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I want to also add that when Kenny Anthony said some time back that they had, I think that was 2005, around that time.
The New Frontier.
Shortly before the election.
The New Frontier.
That,
the New Frontier.
What year it was that there had been growth? What year? You said something.
Sorry for interrupting you, Rick. I thought you were referring to the statement made by Kenny Anthony around that time when he said Vieux-Fort will be the new frontier. And 15 years.
No.
Okay.
That wasn't him.
Okay.
That's not what I'm referring to.
Yes, sorry.
But I remember him saying that we had experienced 3.5 growth, and it was so resented by people. And I thought correctly so. Just like the figures now, 3 points, so and so. People were saying, it's not registering in our pockets. That was the time when GQ was having problems. Remember that, Tim?
Yes, I remember.
Around the time that GQ was having problems and so on. Registered 3.5, and Kenny Anthony was saying, you think I'm lying, etc., etc. The bottom line is 3.5 growth and thereabouts. Don't register significantly in the pockets of people, or don't register significantly in the number of jobs and so on. Those are nice figures to be bandied around by politician to politician, in truth and in fact. Which brings me to the main point of my discussion, of my call, which I don't normally would do to make a life. I have faith in the truth, the word, Dr. Ebals. I have great faith in that. I really believe that St. Lucians, and it's happening all over the Caribbean, people are not being trusted with the truth. To tell people, for example, it was a very interesting discussion with you and Tim there about the EU and so on. Bottom line, I don't believe the Caribbean coming together can take on and resist treaties with the EU when, in fact, you're going to find yourself in trouble with the U.S. and the EU, who are fighting for the same cause regarding their taxes that are coming and hidden in places like that. And then we, in turn, depend on the EU and the U.S. for such assistance they can give us, which comes from their taxes in the first place. So what is wrong spelling this out to the people of this country, the intelligent people of this country, telling them we are not a superpower? There are big countries like Korea that have to bow before the EU. What is wrong in telling the people of the country we are not a superpower, we will never be a superpower, we don't have uranium, we don't have gold, the oil that we have, everybody is reluctant to develop it, including your government, etc., etc., etc. I think that is why people, I almost heard Tim, in effect, echoing the kind of calls he gets. Why do we have to bow to America? And why do we have to bow? Because we signed treaties. And if we don't keep to those, we signed these treaties out of need to begin with, because we don't want people to be hungry, and we don't want the farmers cannot farm on their own, and we don't have the money to subsidize the farming, and then we have to get real markets, and then they come up against competition from countries that can offer their goods cheaper than ours. The Caribbean islands all produce the same thing. There are a lot of problems facing any government whether it's Labour Party or whatnot. But neither government has the gumption to speak the hard truth to the people of the country in the same way as when we campaign. A truth is a truth, and nobody is going to say, well, I don't care, wreck the country, take on the UN, take on the EU, and to hell with the UN. America is not even-handed and whatnot. America will send you back all your illegal aliens. America is going to deport people back on you. America is going to stop giving you what little aid you're getting. America will call on the EU, let's combine against you. That is the hard truth when you are not a superpower. We really are at Duapool, and we can talk all the independence we want to talk. That is what we are. So we have to develop ourselves. We have to unite more as a people. We have to try to get as much self-sufficiency as is possible in our region, because it's not going to be much, but we can try. Instead of being mendicant, and the politicians encourages mendicancy, and then you have the politicians fighting wars with each other that profess to be wars in favor of the people. That must stop. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you so much for calling, Rick. By the way, Rick is on tomorrow evening, 8:30, right here on DBS Television with Talk. Final comments from you?
Tim, I was very happy that you invited me tonight to explain to the nation where we as a government, more or less providing the nation of the report card over the fiscal year, the calendar year 2017. Of course, this definitely was not all that could have been said. There is another side to the story. I looked at we focused more on the economic side. We didn't focus on the fiscal side. That is the revenues and the expenditures and so on. Of course, there are some vexing issues that we face as a government. You talk about what you refer to as non-discretionary spending. In other words, spending that you must undertake as a government. You don't have any choice. I'm
being told we have a call in line.
Yes.
By my producer, we'll take the call, and I'll give you sufficient time to conclude.
Please.
Hello, good evening. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening to you, caller.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy that this gentleman is there. Sir, I'm asking you, is Soufrière part of St. Lucia?
What is your question?
Part of St. Lucia. Because when I was a boy, I left my country at 15. And then I returned after 49 years, I returned back to the same Soufrière. Sir, there is so many development that happened from Fontbernier. You got up to go to Crestland, Rappel, Focago, Wibi. All this developed. So there is street there. Not one street that have a name, not one house that have a number. I'm asking you, and you tell me I have to pay you tax for my property? I'm asking you this.
Where exactly are you calling from in Soufrière, caller?
I am calling from Crestland. And my name is Sylvester Charles. You understand?
Yeah.
And then I want you to come to Soufrière. And I want you to see the road. I want you to see these things.
Okay, Mr. Charles.
Mr. Charles, thank you for calling, sir. Thank you for calling,
all right,
sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Charles, first of all, I need to respond to Mr. Charles. I have a love for Soufrière, because Soufrière is the place of my maternal grandparents and mother. You talk about my great-grandmother, my grandmother, going to be 102 years old, my mother, and so on. So I have a love for Soufrière. Of course, I understand what the gentleman is saying. Of course, coming from England, he's expecting to see certain things that he experienced and enjoyed in the UK, to be in St. Lucia after 49 years. But what he has to understand is that we, as a developing country, development tends to be a little longer, and the revenues and the assistance that the UK gets is not the same with St. Lucia. It's a development, and I believe that the MP for Soufrière, Mr. Charles, He's working very, very hard to create some kind of physical transformation in Soufrière. But Tim, I was telling you earlier, I was only able to focus on the economic side, but the fiscal side, which is a very vexing issue for government. You were talking about the high debt level that we have to face. We are facing, not have to face. You talk about $162 million in interest payments alone, $162 million. And in salaries and wages, Tim, you talk about $480 million annually out of a tax revenue of a 969 thereabouts, which is almost 40%. 40% of every dollar that the government collects in taxes actually go into paying wages and salaries. And I was saying to you here that of every dollar the government earns, Tim, the government has no choice with 90 cents of that dollar. No choice but to spend it in terms of salaries and wages, the debts and interest and payment and so on, services and so on. So discretionary is very, very small. That means the government has a very small window in terms of spending the very little it has. So we have to be very, very creative and very, not only creative, Tim, but we have to be fiscally responsible. So that's why it's important for us to grow the economy, because through the growing the economy, Tim, that's where the government can collect more revenues. So I am very, very happy that we are seeing small signs of growth, shoots of growth in the economy. I believe that we have a solid strategy, a solid policy going forward that will create even greater growth and lower the unemployment. I remember, and we said in our manifesto, that we will not want to see an unemployment rate that is more than 15% in this country, an annual unemployment rate of more than 15%. And in that manifesto also, it states that we will try to achieve an accumulated growth, GDP growth of 12%. This year is 3%.
Mr. Minister, thank you so much for being my guest on this evening's Newsmaker Live.
My pleasure, Tim.
And to you, thank you so much for watching the broadcast and contributing via your calls. If it's Wednesday, it's Newsmaker Live. Time now for the clip that peaked. As a broadcaster, a very good evening. My name is Timothy Paulion. See you next time.